welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of SLMA Radio, the longest-running program here on the Funnel Radio Network. It has to do with sales lead management or sales lead marketing. It probably starts here with the SLMA Radio Show. And today we have with us Susan Finch from the network itself, with her guest, Victor Kippes, CEO of Validar, talking about overcoming the resource demand of virtual events. So if you're ready, let's launch in. Hey, Susan.
Hey, everyone. Susan Finch here, your host today for SLMA Radio. I am the VP of Operations at Funnel Media Group. I am also part of Susan Finch Solutions, like a big part, those first two words. But today, it's not about me. It is about my guest, as it always is. And today, I'm super excited because I have known this guest for several years through every inception of the Sales Lead Management Association, through all of our campaigns, the 50 most, the 20 women to follow, all these things. And Victor has always been there. And so my guest today is the CEO of Validar, Victor Kippes himself. And I wanted to tell you guys about Validar because a lot of you might not know, or maybe you do because you've dealt with them for so many years at live events. Validar specialized in event and enterprise feedback since 2005. But now, Victor, you're going to tell them about how you also offer end-to-end virtual event management. You just blew us away with how fast you guys put together this fabulous product offering when all of a sudden all of our worlds were rocked by, oh, we're not doing these live events anymore. We're going to have to shift and maybe even not shift forever, but shift temporarily before we can merge all these ideas of types of events together. So Victor, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I always enjoy having a conversation with you. I always appreciate SLMA and Funnel Radio. You guys do an amazing job.
Well, thanks. Victor, I was wondering how you guys were adjusting to this because it was a huge change for you and for your business. I mean, we're not going to lie. A lot of businesses took a big hit, but the ones that have risen to the occasion and said this is an opportunity to make a shift in what we offer or to expand what we offer so we can get back to in-person events or whatever those are going to look like. Those are the ones that are going to come out of this beautifully. And I see you guys as Validar as that type of business. And the study alone that you did, can you tell me about that study, the one that you did with BCMA, right?
Once again, I appreciate you inviting me. The impact of COVID-19 was very dramatic to us, as it was to everyone, right? We were on track. We were on track to have a record year in 2020, and then within a week and a half time frame, all of my business was canceled because the services we offered are on-site and on-demand attendee behavior tracking. The impact was dramatic, not only to us, but over 200 customers that we were dealing with as well. With regards to the study you're referring to, we did a lot of work in the past talking to organizations about the effectiveness of tracking attendee behavior and making that data actionable. And we learned a lot about the importance of tracking attendee behavior specific to impacting pipeline generation post-event and real-time during an event. And that challenge hasn't changed at all for event marketers. The events have changed dramatically, especially now. There's nothing happening face-to-face. Everything is happening from a virtual perspective. But every company that we were dealing with, over 200, the first 2 weeks of March, they were all forced with making one of three decisions. Do I cancel, do I postpone, or do I pivot? And what I mean by pivot, do I try to take this event and do what we had intended to do in Las Vegas or Chicago, do that online and offer it virtual? We were forced along with them to figure out how to actually accomplish that in a manner such that they could still meet their overarching goals. So that's really what we did. I've got a lot of smart people here in the company, and we have a core value proposition that we offer to event producers. All we really did is how can we still deliver on that core value for a virtual event or a digital event the way we were from a face-to-face event. And it took us a couple of weeks to figure that out, but the team did a great job coming up with that solution.
Couple of weeks. within a couple of weeks, you were able to completely add new products, new event management strategies, this white paper that just knocked me out. I love the white paper. And that study gave us such helpful information. You guys are going to have to go to validar.com, click on everything about virtual events, because you will have your eyes opened and you will actually be able to take a deep breath to realize, there's a solution to still be successful, even though I'm coming late to the game, even this late in COVID. This is not going away. Virtual events are going to be here to stay. The question is, how long will they be the only option, or how long will it be incorporated into our other event strategies? What I love that you just said, though, was going back to the core values. And I see that is the biggest panic piece that people missed. When they had this opportunity to do virtual events, the first thing, if you ask them, well, why do you want to do a virtual event? And they'd say, because we had an in-person event. That's not the answer. What is the core reason?
It hasn't changed. An event is an event, and the majority of our customers are producing these events with a primary purpose of generating demand for the products and services, right? I'm a firm believer that if that's something you want to do, a face-to-face environment's the best world and best place to do it, but we can't. They're not allowing us. The world's shut down. So now we need to generate demand through a digital experience. Really, the core value that we focus on is two or threefold. Whether you're producing a face-to-face event or a digital event, if you bring in Validar, what we want to do first is measure the effectiveness of your content. So if your event has 70 breakouts, 200 breakouts, 1,000 breakouts, or 20 speakers, our technology, by approaching the market from an agnostic perspective, will allow for you to take a snapshot of each of those experiences and measure that content, so you can see if the content resonated and met your event goals compared to other experiences at your event. So we're really good at, through feedback, taking a snapshot of all your experiences and giving you a report when that event is over that tells you what content resonated really well, what content should be repurposed, and what content do you need to pull off the plate and replace because it wasn't meeting your event goals. That's the first thing that we've been doing for years in a face-to-face world. Now we can do it in a virtual world by approaching it from an agnostic perspective. I'll explain to you what I mean by that in a second. And then the other thing is tracking attendee behavior. I used to manage a large sales team, so I was on the receiving end of events for data for many years. And I don't care if it's a virtual event, a webinar, a digital event, or a face-to-face event. Usually what I would end up getting when that event is over is a name. This person came, call them, and see if they're interested in anything we discussed. That's a problem still solved in a digital event world, where I can tell you of those that have registered, who showed up, what content they consumed, what sponsors they visited, what demos they saw, and more importantly, what content generated renewed interest. We give you all that data and make it actionable, so when you pull up that record in your marketing stack, you have that full view. Your follow-up and your demand generation and your pipeline is going to be increased by bringing us in. That core value hasn't changed since 2005. We're still delivering it, but we were forced to deliver that in a digital event environment versus face-to-face event environment. We simply just went out to the market. We said, if I'm going to produce in a virtual event, what are the best-in-class applications do I need to align with in order to be able to do that? Can we integrate with those applications? We found them, we integrated with them, we learned them very, very well, and we became proficient in these technologies, so we can now go to a customer and say, listen, if you're going to produce a virtual event or pivot, don't worry about the technology. I'll manage and set up that entire platform for you, and I'll train your content delivery team on how to use that platform, and I'll measure how effective that event is for you. You just market the event, leave that to me. So that's kind of how we approach the market, and we aligned with some really cool technologies that allows us to do that.
Well, I'm seeing that. I mean, the list of everybody, there is more than Zoom out there. Zoom has become the darling and what's talked about and become a verb like Google has. We're going to go Zoom this, we're going to Zoom that. But there's so many other options that offer additional solutions and features. And I'm looking, you have Zoom, On24, Hopin, was it Swapcard, Crowdcast, Wova, and then...
That's Whova, yeah.
Whova, thanks. And then what was the other one? Is it Socio, yeah.
These are all really amazing platforms. And really, those technologies were kind of caught and blindsided as well by COVID-19. A lot of those are mobile applications that were used for event navigation at live events. like Socio and SwapCard, really cool technologies that attendees use to build their own agenda, meet other attendees when they go to Vegas or Chicago, right? These are mobile apps that attendees use. When you pivot and go virtual, you still need, especially if it's a complex event, you need a tool that you can use to navigate that content, right? So if I have an event with 100 breakouts, 30 sponsors or 50 sponsors and 1,000 attendees, I, in a space world, will use that app to build my agenda, to meet other attendees. And now in a virtual world, I'll use that app as well to build my agenda, to meet other attendees and to visit sponsors. Socio and SwapCard in general, especially SwapCard, we've taken a shine to because those tools are very easy to integrate with. The data that we get from them is really rich from our perspective. It makes our value greater for the customer, and it allows an attendee, if I'm going to attend a 3-day event from my desk or from my home, to be able to do all the things that you would do at a face-to-face event on your desktop or your mobile phone. I could build my own agenda. I could choose what attendees I want to meet. I could reach out to them and meet with them. I could visit sponsors and schedule meetings. These are all things that we're setting up for our clients with these virtual platforms, and then we're just measuring everything that happens and making that data actionable, as I'd mentioned earlier.
That is so cool. It's also a good place for a break. We're going to take that because I want to get your advice for people for planning their virtual events, what they need to consider before they choose their vendors and partners, and some categories of vendors you would say. You've already talked about the integrations with the venues. Maybe go through that short list. So we're going to do that right after the break, folks. We'll be right back with Victor Kippes from Validar.
And just a quick break to remind you that if you want to know more about Validar, it's simple. The summary is this: they've helped B2B event marketers like yourself better understand and articulate their value. It's vitally important to them that their customers get the credit they deserve for any event and for all their marketing efforts and technology. They also help deliver the best-in-class attendee experience as well. It's something you should definitely check out. We've talked about it before on this show. Things are certainly different now, so you got to be ready. You're facing an exciting new reality when it comes to event marketing and production, from virtual events to hybrid events with contactless check-in and new event safety practices. There's a lot to digest. If you want to learn more, you can see Validar's free virtual events guide, something everybody should check out, for recommendations on how to transition to these new digital events. And you can get them all by going to validar.com/VSpace for virtual spaces. You want to make your virtual event partner and have done the research, have the resources to make your event memorable for all the right reasons. Simply visit validar.com. Okay, let's pick it back up with Susan and her guest.
Hi, everybody. Susan Finch back here again on SLMA Radio with my guest, Victor Kippes from Validar. He is a CEO, and he is telling us all about adjusting your events from going in-person only to incorporating online only, and eventually merging the two, alternating them in some kind of combination. Victor, I'm wondering if you can add to all the information you've given us some advice for people that are saying, okay, I know it's been a few months and we had to cancel our event. We had the wind knocked out of us. We have to do something. We miss our people miss us, our sponsors miss us. We're going to do something. What are some things you want to make sure they know that probably nobody else is telling them?
Boy, so here's what I will tell you. Virtual events are very resource intensive, and we learned that the hard way when we did our first couple events under our belt. It requires a lot of work on your behalf to pull off a good event. With that in mind, there's a lot of benefits about virtual events that I love that I think are going to be the future, and I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that here in a second. In a face-to-face world, you're bound by space and time, right? I have a 3-day event with 200 breakouts, so me as an attendee, I have to select what I'm going to do each of those days. And if there are concurrent activities going on, I have to choose. I can't do both, right? So you're bound by time and space. In a virtual world, if you're smart and a smart event marketer, you can market that content the way you would, say, an HBO miniseries, right? And that makes it a lot easier for an attendee, especially if there's a lot of content that you want to actually peruse at that event. So the one thing I've learned from a lot of smart event marketers is how effective you can broaden your audience by marketing content differently through those mediums, right? In other words, I can go into a swap card, I can build my own agenda and watch that content over a 3-week time period and watch it, go back, watch it again, and see all the information that's important to me, which you can't do in a face-to-face world. What I would tell my clients that are challenged with pivoting is make sure you're marketing your event from that perspective. Make sure the attendees know the value of spreading this out over a 3 to 6 week time frame. You don't have to worry about doing everything on that first day. Consume this content on your own time, right? And that makes it easier for them. The stress goes down and they can actually consume this and do it as they would. And you can still meet other attendees and do all that stuff in a virtual world. You just can't sit down and have a beer with them at a restaurant. So that's the one thing I would say. You need to give yourself at least 4 to 6 weeks to prepare a complex event. And simplicity is very important. Also, the content navigation platform is very, very important, and how you leverage web meetings within that platform we learned a ton about. It's important from my perspective that the attendee experience is very clean and neat, meaning if I want to see a live streamed presentation or if I want to see a recording of a live stream presentation, it should be very easy to enter in, choose that, watch the video, and provide feedback. There's a lot of unique ways that you can do that, and we've learned a ton with regards to pros and cons of these navigation platforms that are important to us. Make sure you give yourself 4 to 6 weeks, and do not hesitate to reach out to folks that have done it a few times, because I can assure you everyone that did it the first time is in the same place that you are right now. And we can be that resource. I'm very proud of my team. They did an amazing, extraordinary job getting proficient on these tools, where we can actually take that burden off your plate, set everything up for you, make sure your content goes off flawlessly, train your content delivery team to make sure nothing goes wrong, and all you need to worry about is marketing your content, getting the attendees there, and then measuring the performance and following up. They're not as easy as face-to-face events, very resource intensive, so be prepared for that.
I think the part that people forget too is we're so used to getting to an event. Okay, I'm a sponsor of an event. I'm an exhibitor. I'm a speaker. I'm a host of a huge event. We get there a few days ahead of time. We set everything up. We get all the rooms ready. We make sure everything's working. We do all those sound checks. I think it is the most undervalued and emphasized place is that pre-event testing. As you're saying, resource intensive, it's people intensive to set up these events and make sure everybody has equipment that's going to work. If it's going to be pre-recorded, what's the quality of it? Can you hear it? Do you need to edit it? Do you have to throw in decks with it? What's going with this to make it come off as something that sounds smooth and easy for anybody to enjoy and learn from? But people don't do sound checks enough.
Not only that, but the idiosyncrasies in Zoom and On24 and Hopin and all those, there's pros and cons to each. They're all amazing technologies, but dependent upon the attendee experience that you want to offer will determine the platform and the technology that you use for each of those sessions. We've actually done events where within the event navigation platform, the general sessions are using a different webinar technology than the breakout sessions, and that's purely based upon the experience you want your attendees to go through. That's something that we've learned early on that's really, really important, something that you should be cognizant of when you're doing these virtual events. Some technologies are better than others depending upon how you want this content to be disseminated. My team's done a really good job of working with our clients, in particular their content delivery team, in getting them prepared to know how to use these new technologies before they go live. We're kind of like the backstage virtual event tech team. Yep. So we'll bring a speaker or a panel into a green room. We'll make sure everything's working, the camera, the lighting, the background image, the speakers, and all that stuff. We'll do a quick rehearsal, we'll kick them off, and then we'll work with the next breakout session. Most of the events that we've done have been live, streamed, and then recorded. We've got a bunch that we're doing this fall that are going to be pre-recorded with a few live streams, so it's all over the board. But we're getting good at this. It's been a lot of fun. I prefer to have a beer, though.
But the green room piece is huge, Victor. And I don't think that enough companies talk about that or don't focus on it or blow it off, because it isn't easy and it takes a lot of coordination. But that's what sets you apart from having a successful event to a flop. And I love what we're talking about, depending on what you want. Folks, I think you should think about, it's an older term, and I'm going to date myself by saying this, storyboarding. And you need to storyboard what you want to have happen. Okay, I want them to sign up. Well, what happens when they sign up? What happens then? Well, they get a welcome. Okay, then what do they get? And then what happens? And what happens, prior to the event? How far in advance? And what happens during? And what happens after? And 3 months after? And I think that's where you really shine, is you know how to guide people through those steps.
Yeah, I mean, it's daunting when you try to take, let's just assume a keynote or a general session where I've got a CEO doing an introduction to a panel and then to another person, then to another speaker, right? Getting all of that coordinated in a manner such that it comes off with a nice professional presentation with the background development and all the aesthetics tied to it. It's not an easy thing to do. So, we spend a lot of time pre-event going through speaker training, and we spend a lot of time before the event going through rehearsals on that activity to make sure things go smooth. And this is when it's live. When it's pre-recorded, it's a little easier. But when it's live, it's no different than a face-to-face event. We're just practicing with different technologies while we're in our own house and room, right?
Right. Well, it's interesting timing, too. I know later this month, we're in September of 2020, every quarter I teach a course on virtual events now for the Direct Marketing Association Northern California. And I have to say, I picked up some more tips from you today. I always pick up tips from you experts that I can incorporate, because this is kind of a fluid process. It has changed so much from 4 months ago. And we've learned so much than we knew 4 or 5 months ago.
The one thing I'm super excited about is how it is going to change the industry. I do believe in 2021, face-to-face will come back, and it'll come back big. But I also believe, especially for those event marketers that are really smart, that are doing one event a year, but these are big events and fee-based, I believe they're going to offer hybrid events, right? Because virtual content, to me, is really, really important. If I can't fly to Vegas and afford to put myself up in a hotel to go to a 3-day event, why not offer access to that event virtually and sell it from a hybrid perspective? We just announced a new product called Orbit by Validar that is focused on just that. And it's something I'm super excited about that I think is the future of events, where I can now offer content both live, face-to-face, and virtual, and create a community for both to actually meet each other, consume content, set up meetings. You can envision a session where you have live people in the room and virtual folks watching live stream as well, leaving that session a meeting within this event navigation application. So with Orbit, what I love about that is I can track content consumption over time, and for one breakout session tell you, you had 500 people watch this recording or watch this presentation. Of those, 20% were live, 80% were digital, and of those 80% that were digital, they watched that recording 5 times for a total amount of 1 hour on an average amount of 15 minutes. So you can get really granular with regards to the data you capture, and it makes for, especially from a demand gen perspective, your event data to be much, much richer. It broadens your audience. It drives more value to your sponsors. I'm a big believer and super excited about the future and how hybrid events, I think, are going to be a core component of that.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing your excitement about all this. It has been a challenge, as you said at the beginning of this episode, to make that shift, but also an exciting one for you. That look at all the innovation you're coming up with and the new product offerings to serve your clients. I'm so excited for you. I want to tell everybody, though.
Yeah, I am too.
We're at the end of our show. We've had a wonderful time together, not long enough, of course. But how can everybody find you other than going to Validar.com? Where else do you want to send them?
I would go to Validar.com. You can fill out a form if you want to talk to me about that. And just go /Orbit, and it'll talk to you a little bit about the new hybrid solution that we just offered that I'm super excited about. I believe face-to-face is going to start coming back late Q1 2021. If you have an event that you're planning in early 2021, I believe it's smart for you to start thinking about planning hybrid, digital only, or face-to-face only, but make sure you're prepared for all of those. Reach out to me, and I can talk to you about ways that you can do that, because no one knows what the future holds. It's best for you to be prepared for any scenario, and Orbit by Validar is intended to help you do that. Just reach out to me on the website if you want to learn more. If you want to speak to some other clients that have gone through this experience, I can most certainly get you in touch with them as well. And Susan, I really appreciate you taking time to listen to me.
Oh, thank you so much. This is such a near and dear topic for me with the classes that I'm teaching. I'm loving hearing all of your ideas, and I can't wait for the launch of Orbit. I'll make sure that I send everybody to that in the post. And remember, you can find us, folks, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio. Anywhere where you listen to a podcast, we are there. You look for SLMA Radio, and we will talk to you soon. Victor, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you as well. Take care.
You've been listening to another great example of the SLMA radio show. Brought to you by the thousands and thousands of members of the Sales Lead Management Association. If it has to do with sales lead management or sales lead marketing, it probably starts here with the SLMA radio show. The original program right here on the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.